It should be no surprise that travelling around the world on a sailboat comes with its challenges. With so many systems on board, we don't only carry provisions for ourselves, but we have to carry an entire mechanics workshop, a sail loft, spare lines, a fully functioning galley, and in our case, an entire dive store. But it doesn't matter how well organised you are, there will always be circumstances outside of your control that you could never have planned for. And when those arise, that's when you've got to get truly creative. We've been here at Fakarava South Pass for about a week diving with the famous wall of sharks, which has been so much better than I ever imagined it could be. We've been diving every single day, and we've actually just decided to skip our next weather window so that we can stay here for an extra week and do more underwater time because we just can't bring ourselves to leave. Unfortunately, we have one teeny tiny problem with a huge consequence. That means we can't dive anymore. Do you want to explain what's going on?
We're improvising. Again.
Nature of the beast, isn't it?
It really is. All right, so we've been diving every day, as you said, and that means that we have been filling our tanks every single day. And our little compressor has been working its little heart out and doing a really good job, frankly. It's been very impressive. We got full tanks within like 25 minutes.
Yeah, we had such a great routine going on.
It was really good, right up to the point that we tried to fill a tank and a really loud bang happened. Basically, we have there's a thing called a condensation drain. Essentially, as the compressor is running and forcing air into the tanks, it gets hot and it creates condensation in the air that it's putting in the tank. So it tries to collect the condensation before it sends the air to the tank so that the tanks don't rust. And there's a little valve that lives down on the bottom of the compressor with a small hole, and we can open that valve and it'll go like psh, and bleed out the condensation, the liquid, and a bit of the air at the same time. And it works fine. This part, not a problem. The issue is the top side of it. And the top side has this kind of assembly of parts going on to create what's essentially an automatic drain valve so that we can be lazy. However, in being lazy, it means there's more moving parts, which means things break. And when we heard that loud bang, and you might not be able to make this out, but this tiny little round rubber washer with a bite in it, which you can probably see on the white better than when I hold it. Yeah, it's supposed to be fully round, and it's more like a C shape.
It's very much not doing its job right now.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, instead of getting like 230 bar tanks, which is high pressure, we were getting 10 bar tanks, which is no pressure, virtually. So we were really worried about this. We've been in touch with the guys at Coltri and saying, what can we do? Any ideas? We hunted around to find this as the problem. It actually took us a while to work that out because there's some other O-valves and things, O-rings that could have failed in the process. But we checked these out. They all look pretty good condition. So we're fairly sure this is where the issue lies. Which means no fills.
Yeah, which massively sucks. Yeah, so having just decided that we're going to spend an extra week here so that we can spend all of our time underwater diving with sharks, this is an unbelievably frustrating situation to find ourselves in. We are going to have to come up with some kind of a creative solution, which might not come as a surprise to you. If you've been watching our channel for a while, you'll know that we spend a lot of time off-grid. We spend a lot of time where it's just the two of us, and things on boats have a habit of breaking. Our Pacific crossing last year, great example. We had a whole ton of things go fairly drastically wrong, and we just had to figure a way out of it because we were there in the middle of the ocean with nobody else to turn to. We just had to make it work. Even more recently, with our engine replacement, with all the problems we've had with diesel bug, let's just say we are not unused to these challenging situations where it is just the two of us and we have to make it work. I know that sometimes in our videos it can look like we just get to live on vacation, and to be honest, sometimes that is true. We do live in an absolutely beautiful part of the world. But when we have things breaking or things going wrong in the background, it can make life incredibly stressful. Thankfully, we work very well together as a team and we know we can rely on each other. But we also know that we have to take care of ourselves, and in particular, we have to look after our mental health, which is why for this video, we have teamed up with BetterHelp as our paid partner. BetterHelp connects you with a credentialed therapist who is somebody who is trained to listen and give helpful, unbiased advice. If you want to try it, you can just go to the website. That is betterhelp.com/Red Seas. You answer a few questions and they will match you to a professional who has years of experience in helping people who are struggling. Usually you'll get matched within about 48 hours, so you can get started straight away and just do whatever is most comfortable for you. You can access this via your phone, on your computer. You can do sessions that are a phone call, a video chat, or even messaging as well. And if you want to change therapist at any time, you can do that as well. So go to betterhelp.com/Red Seas and you will get a special discount off your first month. Now, talking of creative problem solving, Iain has been on the case. You might know that we have a 3D printer on board. And so Iain has been 3D modeling and printing the replacement part that we think we need for our dive compressor right here on the boat in the middle of nowhere.
So yeah, I think we've done pretty good for this busted up circular C-shaped thing. We've now got a black TPU printed, for those of you who look into 3D printing. TPU is kind of like a rubber that you can melt and print in funny shapes. And so we've made as close as I can get. I think it might be a little bit shallower than the original, but not by much. And the hole is about the right size too. So hopefully this mounted inside this little plunger, which is then mounted inside this tube, which is then threaded onto this piece, which is then attached to the compressor, and maybe we'll be back in business.
It will come together and work beautifully.
There's a possibility. It's a small possibility.
So to test it, we're going to try and turn the compressor on, and before we could hear a constant air leak coming out from around that part. There is also a manual valve control, so we can open it and the sound of the air coming out changes because suddenly a lot more air comes out. So basically we're going to use the manual only and see if we can just completely block off the automatic valve and just not use that in the system for a while, but at least we should be able to hear it quite quickly if it's worked or not.
Hey, are you doubting the 3D print precision that has taken place?
No, absolutely
not. This might work perfectly. We may actually have it fully functional. Maybe it's better than when Coltri made it.
I don't know how he lives with this optimism.
All right, generator fired up for the electricity side of things. It is time to press the big green button and see what happens. If all goes well, our pressure gauge on the top here is going to go past 10 on the little gauge. Here's hoping it works. Ready?
Ready. Fingers crossed. I so hope this works.
I mean, you're at the safe end of things.
Nothing bad is going to happen. It's just going to go psh if it hasn't worked, which would just be sad.
Too sad. All right.
Okay. That's sounding quieter than it was before.
We're good there. Pressure gauge is still reading at 10. That's not what we want to see. All right, I'm going to put my hand down at the drain. I should be able to feel the air come out if it's not worked, or there should be no air if it has worked. So let's see what happens. I mean, there's a little bit of air, but not as much as we had before.
Okay.
So there's a small leak.
But enough that it's not going to fill the tank.
It just might take longer to fill the tank, I suppose, or the valve will die. It's up to 20 bar. But I suspect it's going to give up before we get to anything good, but we are at 40 bar now, so
There's some kind of progress.
we just have to wait for those whoosh, and then we know what goes wrong.
Yeah.
I should also start a timer because we have to do the condensation valve ourselves.
Oh yeah. I mean, at the very worst, if we can fill a tank, but the valve only lasts for one fill, it's such a small part that we could just 3D print like 100 of them and replace them every time. It would be super annoying, but I would do that for a dive with, 200 sharks.
Only a small leak. Like, I can seal it with my fingers, so it can't be that high of pressure.
Well, you just sit there and put your finger on it then, and then we'll all be good.
I believe there's a fable about that. We're like 3,000 PSI, 210 bar.
210.
That's you.
Okay, closing up.
And that's at 210, just over 3,000 PSI, and it held. And now you're just breaking our dive tanks instead. Brownie.
I got to closed and then it clicked and went a little extra quarter turn. I think it's fine.
You're fixing that one.
Can't
I
take
fixed
me
the
anywhere.
compressor. It's your turn.
Oh man, I can bake a cake and shove it on the end. I can't believe it. That's amazing.
I made a thing.
You made a thing.
That's insane.
Thank you. I want to go dive with sharks now.
So that's why everyone needs a 3D printer on their boat. That's insane.
I have to admit, when we first got the 3D printer, I wasn't convinced it was like a crucial tool that every cruiser needed. However, we have had a certain number of situations where it actually has proved exceedingly useful. Even this week, actually, when we were doing our night dive, Iain 3D printed like a little cover for our dive torch, which worked really well. I was giving you credit.
Yeah, we didn't.
No, it is really impressive.
We didn't know if we needed a 3D printer, but it turns out they are really useful. So we made up this really simple thing. So this dive light has like a 180-degree almost spread, which means it's not very practical on a dive site.
Yeah,
so
like lights up the whole site.
The whole thing. It's like having a floodlight on the entire dive site, which on a night dive that can be comforting at times, but it's also not very polite.
Kind of ruins it.
Everyone's there for the atmosphere. So we made this little ring here, but then it's also adjustable. So we can like focus
It's like a little
beam,
telescope.
and then you can reduce it by different amounts to get the size of beam you want. So it's
Yeah,
not
I wasn't
perfect.
sure if it was going to work well underwater, but it didn't break.
And it printed in one piece, and then it just kind of disassembles itself. I don't know how to describe that. There's a name for the kind of print it is, but it works. It works really, really well.
It's very cool. So the plan is that we are going to go diving tomorrow morning. The tide kind of slack tide gets later and later every day. So we've been diving later and later into the afternoon, and now it resets and we actually have to get up early. But instead of going shark diving, there still will be plenty of sharks, but we're going to stay in the shallows, and it should be a completely different looking dive.
Yeah, so what we've noticed is at the end of each of our deep dives, we're coming up, and the last, you do a thing called the safety stop, which is 3 minutes at 5 meters. You might even see us do this sometimes in videos. That's what that means. And at that point, the colors just explode. Everything gets a bit more exciting, and the fish are different.
Absolutely beautiful. So rather than waiting till our last 5 minutes of the dive to see it, we thought we'd actually go in intentionally
Do like
see what
a
it's like.
5-hour dive, because we
Yes.
don't use any air if we were at that depth. That's
It's going
great.
to be perfect. Well, unfortunately, we have woken up to grey skies and rain clouds, but yeah, not really the vibe we were going for with this shallow dive, but we're going to do it anyway because I'm sure it's going to be amazing. I do have one slight confession to make. What are you fixing for me?
Why don't you tell the good people why I had to take an angle grinder to one of our kitchen knives to create this monstrosity?
Okay, so I definitely didn't intend this, but it is a super creative solution. I'm falling over in this very tiny slight swell. When I turned the handle to close the tank and I closed it a bit too far, that did actually break it. And so we couldn't open the tank and thought all the dives were off again. But Iain can fix anything. So as long as you have an Iain on board, it's not a problem. You can break as much as you like and your dives won't be ruined.
So the problem was that the valve on top of the tank uses a kind of special screwdriver, and we don't own one. And we went to a local dive shop and they claimed not to own one. So I had to take one of our table knives and create the special screwdriver.
That is seriously impressive. Look at that, with an angle grinder on a kitchen knife.
It had to be done. Unfortunately, yeah, I had to like take the edges down to make it fit, but it means that it fits the kind of special bolt here that keeps the handle on, because somebody got carried away opening and closing their tank valve and
I'm so strong.
stripped the thread. So we were fortunate we had a spare tank valve. So we were able to take it all to pieces, hijack some of the parts off that one and put it into this one with the help of this.
We're so determined to get diving. I'm just like fully expecting to see a whale shark or something. Like this is just gonna be, it's all gonna be worth it. We've had to like fight so hard to get in the water today. It's gonna be amazing.
It might leak a bit, but it's gonna be amazing.
Okay, short dive. We've got some new dive buddies again today. So this boat just behind us, there's a couple of Germans on there who want to come with us today. So we're going to go pick them up in a second and head out to the pass. It is almost high tide. We've got about an hour and a half. So we're just going to get the last little bit of incoming current. So the visibility should be amazing. And it should be like a really, really gentle drift as long as we time it right. The wind is basically non-existent today. So the sea and everything is super calm. So yeah, I'm excited for this one. The South Pass at Fakarava is famous for its wall of sharks dive. But the whole coral reef here is a World UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, with dozens of species of colourful fish among the corals. It wasn't long before we spotted a white-tip reef shark sleeping on the sand, and from there, we couldn't resist dropping down to the 30-metre trench where the wall of sharks is at its busiest. I mean, when are you ever going to pass up an opportunity to swim with 700 sharks in such close proximity? Caves like this one create a perfect hideout where we can get a super close-up show as the sharks swim right past us, undisturbed by our bubbles that would usually frighten them away. Sharks are naturally curious, so they quickly come in to get a good look at these strangers in their house, like some kind of back-to-front aquarium. It's always such a painful reminder that we are only guests in these depths. And so, with our air running low, we have to wave goodbye to these beautiful sharks for one last time and head up into the shallows to enjoy all the other sea life that calls this reef home. Close to the surface, there's a bright array of colours on display, and we are reminded of why we wanted to spend more time here. The fish are all so playful, nibbling at our cameras and showing off for us as the sunlight plays through the surface of the water. Well, that was our last dive here in Fakarava. Luckily, the weather has turned out quite nice this afternoon, which is very good timing because we have quite an exciting idea for our very final night here before we leave this anchorage. We have invited all the boats to come over for Sundowners, but before they arrive, we really need to tidy up because basically our entire cockpit has just been a dive shop this week. All of our gear has been left out, so we need to rinse everything off, pack it away, make some space, and then get something set up that we haven't shown you before, but we think is going to be really cool.
It's always so sad picking away the dive gear.
I know.
Are we ever going to see that many sharks ever again?
Are we ever going to dive again?
Ever again. Like, what was it we heard? That pass has the highest, it's the largest pack of grey reef sharks on the planet.
Yeah.
So we will never see that many grey reef sharks in one place ever unless we come back here.
That's insane, isn't it?
Think of it that way.
Leaving here is probably one of the first places where I'm like, oh, but if we could just sort of swing back around another time and come here again to dive a little bit more, that would be really good. So it is time to move on, but
we might have to force ourselves to come back here at some point.
Yeah, I'm not going to rule it out.
I think this might be reoccurring. I'm not sure how we're going to present it to you guys when we just come back and say, oh, look, it's Steve the shark. Because we know them all by first name basis.
Billy.
It's at that stage now. We've been here long enough, but I really want to come back.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Anyway, we're just distracting ourselves so that we don't have to tidy up.
Get to work.
Stop motion starts now. It is so still right now that you can see the mooring line going down to the bottom. It looks like that's just on the surface. It's 2 or 3 meters below the surface. That's just how clear the water is. But that is perfect because we have been waiting for a mirror flat day and we have until the sun sets, which is about 1 hour to get everything ready. And these are clearly quite crucial to the plan.
This is vital. Otherwise, why have we been carrying them around with us for 3 years?
It was a nice thought when we bought them and we've not had a reason to use them in 4 years.
No.
This is our moment. So are you going to explain what you're doing?
It feels like I'm starting some kind of medical procedure, if I'm honest.
Oh, I was just thinking like Blue Peter Arts and Crafts. This is
one
kind
I
of my
made
job, really,
earlier.
isn't it?
I'm not even sure if I could demonstrate what it is. Do you want to do it in a particular colour palette?
Oh, definitely. We'll get ridiculed if it's not.
Basically, we're having people to come round, and so we're going to have them all tie off their dinghies off the back of the boat. And this is so that they can tie off in comfort. I don't quite know what the phrase would be.
I think hopefully it lets more boats tie off without kind of bumping and clumping off each other.
Yeah, because if we only put them on the cleats, then we'll end up with like this army of boats all bouncing off each other on the sides of the boat.
Yeah.
Whereas this puts them all in the big middle area here, which is probably better, I think.
All right, so the last part of the setup is everything in this box. It's like all you need for a great night in.
Great night in the wild outdoors. We are doing drive-in dinghy cinema.
It's gonna be so good.
I cannot wait for this. So basically, yeah, everyone's going to turn up. They're going to tie their dinghies off to that line outside, and then we're going to put this guy up on the ceiling and project onto a giant screen that fills all of our davits where Link normally lives, so that everyone can watch a little short movie.
Yeah, so there is a documentary called 700 Sharks, which was filmed right here in the pass at Fakarava, and it is all about the sharks that we have been diving all week with.
Basically, if you saw what we were filming and you think, it's not very cinematic, watch their thing, it's really good.
That's why we're watching it at the end of our week and not the beginning. But yeah, we have just invited everybody to come over and watch it. So some people have been here a while and have been diving. Other people have just arrived, and this is going to give them a taste of what there is to see here that they haven't seen yet. But
I also like the fact we're showing it in the dark, and a lot of it takes place during the hunting stuff that we saw in the night dive. So I was voting everyone should be in like inflatable rings. We should play Jaws music.
Well, yeah, Iain did suggest earlier, should we show that documentary or should we just watch Jaws?
I think it'd be great. And then what we could do is not pack away the dive gear, go underneath and just occasionally pull an ankle.
That would be amazing.
It'd be so good. Have random people just disappearing in the middle of the movie. But I was vetoed. I don't know why.
I know, strange that one. Anyway, drive-in movie. And I think we are just about ready. The sun hasn't even hit the horizon yet, but once in our lives we are not late. I feel kind of bad because I've just been making some bread this afternoon, so the boat smells amazing, but I haven't made enough to actually give some to anybody who comes along. So, oh well, they can enjoy the wafting of the bakery out of the galley.
It's fine. It's going to draw them in. You see, it's like cinemas do popcorn. That's why they do popcorn.
Oh, that's why they do it.
Smell and the saltiness, and we got the saltiness for sure. But the idea of come for the bread and then enjoy the movie.
I have been getting our snacks together. We have saved some Haribo Star Mix, so that's going to be our cinema treat. And we just need to find
cinema treat.
So we're just going to find some cushions and throw them in the dinghy and hopefully make it comfortable enough. And then wait for the crowds to come flocking in.
Oh, we have popcorn, so
hey!
It's becoming unwieldy. It's not working. This one's stuck. Look professional.
I feel like I
things.
could help, but I bet nobody wants me to.
What?
We're just all having a lovely time watching you kerfuffle with all of that.
It's just kerfuffle.
You watch this footage back, it was a kerfuffle.